Hey folks, so the very next talk is the story of how my love for free software turned me into a designer by our very own Abraham Raji. So Abraham Raji has been active in the Debian India community and all the free software communities in Kerala since long. So Abraham, let's hear it out from him how his love has turned him into a designer. Let's begin the talk.
Let's hear it out from him how
His love has turned him into a designer. Let's begin the
Abraham.
talk.
Let's hear it out from him how
Hey everyone, my name is Abraham Raji and I am a designer who uses FOSS tools for his work. Today in this talk, I'd like to take you through my journey as a designer and discuss about some of the tools that's available in the FOSS ecosystem for design. So my journey doesn't start that long ago. I mean, it starts about 2018, my second year of my engineering degree. So me and a couple of my friends who were also free software enthusiasts like me started a small force club at our college, and we used to conduct events from time to time, small events. So we'd have talks, we'd have workshops, we'd sometimes have small community meetups where we'd just hang out and talk about force and some cool tools that we found out. So that was sort of a thing. Now these for these events we had posters. So posters where we used to make have these posters that we'd release, we'd publish on our social media accounts or on all these groups on various messaging platforms, and that's how people found out about these meetups and these talks, these workshops, and that's how people came to our events. But thing is that we did not make these events. We did not make these posters. These posters were made by students who were designers in our college who used to design for other events, like design for other events essentially. So what they use is the Adobe Suite. So they use Adobe Suite for all their work. Sometimes it's Photoshop, sometimes it's Illustrator, and the fact that an event that I was organizing for free software required the use of all these proprietary tools for its success didn't really sit well for me. I mean, I have no issue in consuming things made out of proprietary tools, like I watch movies, I listen to music, and they're all made out of proprietary tools. So that's not an issue for me. But the fact that I needed these proprietary tools, that was the situation that I needed these tools for the success of a free software event just didn't seem right to me. So I went and I was close with some of these designers, so I went and talked to them about freedom and privacy. And understandably, even though they agreed with the advantages of free software, they were they weren't willing to make the switch because they were worried about their productivity and that these tools may not have the exact things that they needed and were used to. I mean, I understood that, so I didn't really push it much further. So instead, what I did was I thought, why not give it a try myself, and that's exactly what I did. I started by doing small illustrations, small posters for events conducted by the Force Club, and that's how it started. And as time went by, I started designing for others. People started coming to me for small logos, small posters, this and that, and I started doing work for communities outside colleges too. But even at this point, I didn't think of myself as a designer. I sort of more or less thought of myself as a developer, a software developer who did designing on site. And it I kept thinking of myself that way up until I came across this person called Raghu Kamath, or Raghavendra Kamath. That's his full name. So people who know him call him Raghu. I first came across his website, then I had an opportunity to interview him, then I had more opportunities to speak with him, and he's a really nice dude. And the thing is that he is a professional designer. He has done for work for very recognizable brands in India, and he runs his own studio too. And the catch is that he actually does all of this using exclusively free software tools. And that, at first when I came to know about that, that really surprised me. First of all, someone who is in the it is not common for someone who is not a software developer to care about or you know enthusiastic about free software. That was not very common. And on top of that, anyone who is not a software developer, even software developers are intimidated by Linux and the tools that it offers. And for someone who is not a software developer to actually spend time and run an entire studio all on himself without like an IT support from someone, you know it was very impressive that he did what he did. And that really changed my perspective on this thing. That I started to see these tools as actual professional tools, and I started to expect more from these tools. I started attempting more complex designs. I started trying more and more stuff with these tools, and that the change was evident in my work. And within a few months, people started to actually show interest in hiring me as a freelance designer, as a part-time designer. And I got more and more opportunity to work paid. And I've worked on community projects, like paid community projects. I've got the opportunity to work on government projects and more. And to think that all this was possible simply because I didn't want to use I didn't want to use Adobe Suite, and I loved free software. I mean, I never expected this, to be honest. It's still somewhat of a dream for me. And I still don't get how came to this. It's sometimes I think it's sheer luck. But essentially my love for free software turned me into a designer. Yeah, so that is my story. And here's a few designs that I've done. So these are all for communities. These are all stuff I've done for communities. So various communities. The final one is the call for proposal poster that I've done for this very conference, and this is what I'm capable of doing right now with Inkscape. And Inkscape is my tool of choice. So that being said, there are many tools, and I'd like to talk to you about a few tools. I'd like to start with Inkscape. So Inkscape is a vector graphics tool. Inkscape is it's very simple when you look at it at first, but there are some advanced stuff that you can do it, but you have to really put effort into learning the thing. The Inkscape developers try to make Inkscape very simple for users who are starting out, so they try not to intimidate them. But there are very advanced features that you can do with it. And one thing I really love about Inkscape is that the base file format for Inkscape is SVG. So essentially, if you use if you have a file that is .ai or .psd, if you want it to render properly 100% of the time, your best option is to open it via Photoshop or Illustrator. But for SVG, you can pretty much open it in a browser or a text editor even if you choose to. So like, you don't need Inkscape to open an SVG file that is produced by Inkscape. And you can do so. Essentially, if I am in a team, not everyone has to use Inkscape. Everyone just needs to use a tool that supports SVG. I think that is wonderful, and that is the kind of direction these tools needs to go. So I really love Inkscape for that, and Inkscape sort of fits well for my style of design. I mostly use vectors, and there are very flat designs, so Inkscape is really the tool of my choice. Next is GIMP. GIMP is something that everyone has to use at some point or other if they're using FOSS tools for design. It's basic image manipulation, and GIMP has a lot of advanced features too, and it is getting powerful day by day. With every release, it is very well maintained. It's one of the oldest projects out there, so you can say the fact that it's still active means that it is very well maintained. So GIMP is something that everyone should try out. And even if you're not an artist, like recently I came to know that people use GIMP for automating image processing. So sometimes there's a large set of images, like thousands of images, and you want to make them, or grayscale, or you want them or resize them to a particular size for maybe training a machine learning model or something. What people do is people use GIMP to automate and script the kind of transformations they want to apply on the images, and GIMP just does that, and they do this on thousands and thousands of images, and GIMP is what they use. And this is sort of the beauty of GIMP being an open source or free and open source tool. and I don't think we would be able to GIMP would I don't think it would have been able to do it if GIMP wasn't a free and open source tool. And this is sort of why we need more force tools in this sort of area. So yeah, that's GIMP. Next is Krita. So Krita is what you use if you're into digital art. If you want to draw, if you like making digital art, Krita is what you should go. So if you go to YouTube and if you look at all the reviews and comparisons between things like Krita and Illustrator, people definitely feel that Krita is very powerful and is very it has a lot of potential. In fact, a lot of people actually say that a lot of people switch from Photoshop to Krita and Illustrator to Krita because it's very it's a much better they find that it is almost a much better deal for them because it offers almost all the features that they need and it's free, and they can extend it to fit their kind of workflow. In fact, I think Regu said somewhere that after using Krita for years, when he went back to Photoshop, he felt that the user experience was pretty bad, and he actually really felt that the Krita's advanced workflows actually spoiled Photoshop for him. So yeah, that's how good Krita is. So if you are into digital art, you should definitely take a look at Krita. Next is Pencil. So this is a tool for UI UX and prototyping, and this is where the force ecosystem is still sort of lacking. So the thing is that Pencil is the only tool for UI UX and prototyping that I found that had a stable release. There are other upcoming tools, but they're still in their alpha stage. So for example, stuff like Akira, then there's Penpot, then there is Quant. Some of them are web based, some of them actually have a desktop client, actually official desktop client. So the thing is that they are upcoming. There is no Pencil in itself, without the community tools, without the community plugins, it's very bare bones, and the design or UI elements that it has, it is outdated. But you can definitely use the community plugins and make it more usable. But still, Pencil, it has a really good user experience and it is definitely usable, but without the community plugins it's pretty outdated. And the reason for that is that Pencil is made by a force company called Evolve Us. It's a Vietnamese company. So they develop Pencil when they're not working on other projects. So that's how Pencil is being made, and because of that, Pencil's development process is very slow, but they still are active but slow. That's what how it is for Pencil. But it's something better than nothing, I guess. So Pencil is pretty good and you can use it for UI UX, but me personally, I still stick to Inkscape because I sort of like Inkscape and I'm somewhat partial towards it. It is very Inkscape is definitely a very powerful tool, to be honest. So these are tools that I wanted to talk about, and I hope in the years to come we have more tools and the existing tools will become more powerful. So if you're a software developer, you like writing system software or this kind of software, you should definitely try and invest your time into creating something for UI UX and prototyping, because there's definitely nothing out there, not nothing, there's definitely a lot of space for a force UI UX and prototyping tool, and you should definitely exploit it. And that's about it, to be honest. So thanks for listening to me. I'd like to conclude this talk by saying that we should definitely try and contribute back to free software tools outside the developer ecosystem. In the sense, it is more or less kind of easy to leave off 100% free and open source tools if you're a developer, but if you are an artist or a music producer or a doctor, it's not that easy. It's somewhat very difficult or somewhat impossible, to be honest. So if we really want the year of the Linux desktop to come, we need to start investing in those areas too. So that is something that I want to tell you people. And for those designers who are still contemplating on moving to something like Krita or Inkscape from Photoshop or Illustrator or any of the Adobe suite, if I can do it, you guys can do it, because I am not, like, I'm not someone who really pursues designing as a profession. Even I do it. I started as a hobby, and I just do it even today as a hobby. But opportunities came to me. But if you're someone who is serious about it, you can definitely get ahead a lot more than I've done. So yeah, if I can do it, you can do it too. And we should definitely popularize and normalize the use of these software more. Tools like this that are made with love are so important, and they're so special, and we should definitely have more of those. And I seriously get mind blown every time I see someone do something awesome with these tools, and I was like, oh, these you could do this too. So yeah, I think these tools are very important. These tools that are not, blocked behind huge paywalls, that respect everyone's freedom and privacy. I think these are very important. So yeah, so now you guys can ask me, any questions that you have in the Etherpad for Q&A session. Thank you.
Hello. So thanks, Abraham, for the wonderful talk. So let's move forward with the Q&A session. So on pad, I see there is a question by RRS. So Abraham, RRS asked, in the context of the Indian market, what would be the optimum hardware to run Creta? He says, I have been wondering if these tools, but Creta in particular, could be used in a tablet device, and does it support Android tablet? Any recommendation for the hardware? So, Abraham?
So as far as hardware for any design tool goes, right now, any kind of processor that's like above a Celeron, i3 works, i5 works, and i5 is a sweet spot in the context of the Indian market right now, because it's kind of it's available in budget as well as in somewhat higher range devices. So i5 has a processor and at least 4 gigs of RAM, because obvious reasons, and 8 gigs is recommended, but 4 gigs will work too, and those are really the only two requirements, if I say so. Then as far as hardware support goes, for Krita, since I don't use Krita a lot, I am not really sure about the hardware requirement, I mean, the hardware support for tablets. But I'm aware that there's a documentation of in Krita's website with a list of all the devices that's supported. So if you are looking for purchasing options, it would be best if you go through their website and go through the list of devices that are officially supported.
Yeah, that answers it. So let's move to the next question. So the next question is by Kapil HP, who says, what programming language can one use to script Creta or Inkscape? And he says that he knows Python works with GIMP. So, Abraham?
Yeah, Python works for Krita too. You can just import Krita, from the whole thing. It works. Python works for Krita too. Then, as far as Inkscape is concerned, Inkscape, like I said in the video, primarily deals with SVGs, and SVGs follow this XML format. So any programming language that sort of works, in manipulating the XML format, you can use it to do stuff with Inkscape. And then I've seen people use D3, JavaScript D3 for doing stuff with Inkscape. And that is something that I haven't really tried, but I know that anything that has a library for XML, you can make stuff work with Inkscape. So yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
Python works. Definitely, Python works for all three.
Yeah, Python works for a lot of things. Uh, so it's about time, and thank you, Abraham, for the amazing talk and more so about the Q&A part. So let's end the talk now. So see ya. Good day.